Our session now is 10:15 to 11 Eastern time, so 45 minutes. It's the perspective of the realtor. Shansi is going to be asking our questions here. If you would like to come forward, Shansi. Chris, could you go ahead, please, and bring Rachel and Teddy in as panelists for me? Hey, Shansi.
No problem.
Hey there.
That was some great questions to Mike.
It really was. I was trying to type and answer some of the stuff on our current products, but they just came in too fast. So I think somebody took note of them.
And they were coming in through that FAQ form as well.
Yeah.
On the HomeGauge Together page in the schedule, you will see a link to a product FAQ page. Do feel free to submit questions there, and we'll make sure they get to Mike as well. And there were one or two that we made a note of, and Mike will follow up with you as well. I've marked all your questions from that last session as answered for the time being, so that we can do those. Bear with us just a moment while we bring in our guests. Chris, I've managed to move over to Rachel for you.
I was going to say, Chris said that looks like he might be having an issue.
No problem, I can do that. Okay, I can
Hi, Rachel.
Rachel, first of all. Let's just check we have Teddy here. Teddy, you should be able to go with your video now.
I allowed my video, but it's not streaming.
Yeah. The one thing I might suggest is just closing that and coming back on.
Okay.
I'm amazed that everybody's been able to find such great places in their houses to sit and have nice backgrounds and the sound be good. We were doing some prep sessions with our speakers yesterday, and one of our speakers was somewhere that was a little echoey, and I was saying that I was actually in England recently, right at the beginning of COVID, and a BBC news reporter was having to report from their house, and the only room he could do it in where he had any peace and quiet was the bathroom. But of course, the bathroom was very loud and echoey. So he did the BBC 9 o'clock news in his bathroom with a full bed comforter over his head to try and drown out the echoing, which is just astonishing times that's what you see on the BBC. Teddy, we might need to do this without your face, unfortunately.
I will switch to a laptop, but you can get started.
Okay, great. Shansi, I will hand it over to you. We have 45 minutes.
Sure. Today we have Rachel and Teddy from, are you from Berkshire Hathaway, is that right?
I am from Berkshire Hathaway.
Okay, so why don't you just give us a little intro about what you do, how long you've been an agent. I do have a list of questions that we'll ask you to kind of keep the exchange going, but we really appreciate you being here today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. So I am a realtor with Berkshire Hathaway. I have been a realtor for 4 years. I work on the Clopas Stratton team. So our team is rated one of the top 1% of realtors in the city. Yeah, we did 82 million in sales last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, so that's busy stuff right there.
Fun, definitely keeps me busy.
Yeah. Teddy, oh, go ahead. Teddy finally got in. We want to welcome him real quick.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.
Am I still going?
Yeah, I mean, if you still have anything else otherwise.
Yeah, you know, I grew up right outside the city in Oak Park, and I live in the South Loop in Chicago now.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we're really happy to have you. Teddy, can you tell us a little bit about your career in real estate, who you work for, what it is you specialize in maybe?
Sure. My name is Teddy Burns. I'm a residential real estate broker with Compass in Chicago. I was also born and raised in the city, Old Town. And right now I find myself specializing with relocation and helping individuals move from the Midwest and the coast to the city. I also mainly deal with first-time home buyers, so helping individuals buy condos, single-family homes, and multi-unit buildings throughout greater Chicago.
Awesome.
I've been in the industry for 3.5 years. I'm only by myself, not on a team, but it's been generally a wild ride, and it's been fun.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy right now with the way things have, I imagine you guys have to get super creative. I don't know what your specific state regulations are right this second, but I imagine it is definitely causing some evolution happening in your industries up there. So I just have a list of questions I'm just going to ask you, and you each can answer. If there's anything that kind of comes to mind and you think that is important that you might want to share, obviously, please do that. The home inspectors are always working with you guys. You guys kind of have this little parallel experience that happens, and you rely on each other to make this stuff come to fruition. So I'll start with Rachel. How do you find the inspectors that you're working with right now? How is it that you vet them and come across who it is that you want to use?
So the ones I use now are the ones I've been using for a couple years. You kind of try out a couple and then find some that you work well with. And so initially, when I got my inspectors, it was just word of mouth. So talking with other realtors, and it's amazing how many realtors ask me for recommendations, for referrals. So, you know, once you get good with one agent, you really get passed around to a lot of different agents. So they were ones that friends of mine had used, and they were really successful with me. So I've been using them for a couple of years.
Great, great. And so you just kind of have a little pool that you pull from, and occasionally maybe pull a new person in to give them a test drive?
Absolutely. And, you know, especially if you're doing more of a specialized property, or maybe
Sure.
a little outside the normal, like Chicagoland area, then I still look for referrals from other agents. But usually, you know, agents are the first people I go to see how their experience has been in the past with them and
Okay.
who they would recommend.
Okay, awesome. Okay, great. Teddy, how about you?
I completely agree with Rachel. Coming into this industry, I knew nothing about real estate, and so there was a lot to learn. And agents were always the go-to for the word of mouth referrals. Now that I'm a part of Compass, we have a really good internal network, so we can post about home inspectors that we are working with that we really like. So that's another good option for me. And I also have been working with my go-to inspector for a couple of years now. So if he's busy, I will reach out to just our group of realtors and ask them for some recommendations.
Okay. So when you're thinking about the inspectors that you use, what is it that kind of clicks with you about why you want to continue using them? Obviously, the quality of the report is there, but there's probably some other elements that come to mind as to how you want to, what makes you want to return to them every time, Rachel?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it just kind of starts with overall professionalism. So that's a big one for me, having great customer service. So not for me as the agent, but for my client. Especially if I'm giving them a name, I'm making a recommendation, I want them to feel like they're really being taken care of and they're getting what's in their best interest. The other thing I would say as far as inspectors go, the inspectors that really make it more of a teaching experience. So you definitely have some inspectors who are in there to do the job, they get it done, which is great. You know, you want to get that great, thorough report. But then you have a lot of other inspectors that really will pull the clients along and help make it a teaching experience. And that for me has been, you know, just my clients, a huge difference when they feel like they really understand the process, they understand their home, especially first-time home buyers. You know, it's scary, it's intimidating, there's a lot going on. So I think those are all really big things for inspectors.
Okay, that's true. Those first-time home buyers, boy, I mean, just keeping them calm is your challenge. Keeping them, don't freak out, right? Teddy, how about you?
Yeah, first-time home buyers are a huge part of my business. So they don't know a lot about this process. They have a lot of questions. They're really looking for that inspector to guide them through from start to finish. And I like when they're upfront and they kind of set the expectations that they're going to be working through the home systems of the home, going room by room. And at the end, they'll be kind of explaining anything that they see that could be a concern. My favorite inspectors are those that take the time to educate my first-time home buyers. So Rachel said it perfectly. When they take the time, I know that they're a solid addition to the team.
Yeah, that is, I find, obviously I've met so many home inspectors in my life, and it amazes me that there is sort of like a percentage of them that are genuine educators. It is like, they don't want to just hand over a piece of paper with some pictures and comments. They want to educate. And if everybody gets educated down the line, it makes for a better process, right? For everybody involved, hopefully on the next transaction. Rachel, how about, and dare I ask, what was your worst experience with a home inspector? We have the best question coming up next, guys, so we're not just going to leave you at the worst.
Worst experience. I've been fortunate where I haven't had too many issues, I would say, but I will say I remember having one inspector who he came in very brusquely, kind of went right to work, and I remember the whole time my clients were there feeling confused and worried and not really sure, and they would try and get more involved, and he wasn't really letting them get involved, which kind of goes back to that last question about the teaching experience. And he was pretty quiet the whole time. He didn't really talk. He didn't engage with my clients at all. So I think the worst part was at the end of it, my clients had more questions than when they started, and they felt more unsure about the process and about how to take care of a home and what was going on. And you know, what they really got was this report, which is pretty intimidating because at the end of the day, they can't really decipher what's really serious and what should be a top priority for them, and what are some things that, you know, can be fixed over time or aren't as serious but have to be on the report. So that was probably the worst experience, and I did not recommend that inspector to my clients that day, or of course ever again.
All right, how about you, Teddy?
My worst experience came about from when one of my clients had chosen the inspector themselves. He actually was a very personable guy. He seemed to have a lot of knowledge on city regulations and home systems, but I took almost like offense to when he would explain the issues of the home, whatever they may be, but he wasn't able to do so in a way that wouldn't cause unnecessary alarm to my buyers. It felt like it was always a doom and gloom. No matter the minor issue, it was like the home was gonna fall down. So for me, it was just extreme. And I wish that he was able to provide some context into why these issues might be there, especially if the home was 100 years old. There'll be issues. So it felt like I would never sell a home for this client.
Right.
I ended up having to use him for a few times.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Fear Factor Home Inspection Edition, right? It's really scary. I mean, and obviously there's a balance to be found there, you know, but it can be, if there's no support as to why they're saying something, I imagine that could be really stressful for everybody involved. All right, let's see. Okay, let's do our best. What's our best? What's the best experience you had with a home inspector? What made them shine for you, Rachel?
Much better question.
Yeah.
I would say, you know, the best experience, one of my go-to inspectors, just who does a great job, professional, great customer service, really helps teach the clients. But I think what made the biggest difference was that we had some roofing issues that had come up on the inspection report. He went in detail and explained it to him after. And then a couple days later, when we were back in our attorney review and negotiating items, it became a huge issue between the buyers and the sellers and who was going to pay for it and what was happening. And they actually sent out a roofer who came out and said, no, the roof's fine, which totally contradicted the report. So we actually reached back out to our inspector and let him know what was going on, and just to kind of get his advice and what he thought, you know, could there have been a mistake in his assessment of the roof? And he actually was incredibly helpful, quickly answered all our questions, was available for us, showed us additional pictures, explained the difference between what the roof should have looked like versus what it did, and really just kind of helped my clients understand even more from that perspective. So it was nice that when the inspection was over, he wasn't just done. He was willing to come back and really teach them and guide them. And we actually got a third party out to the roof who agreed, yes, there is an issue. And it was actually a manufacturer's issue with the roofing itself. But it was nice to know that, you know, just because they paid and got the report, he wasn't he's still involved in a big part of
he
it.
recognized that it's not just that, like, these are his clients, these buyers. I mean, it's not just like, give me a check, I'll give you the paper, we're done.
Exactly.
But how about you, Teddy?
Yeah, I would say that my go-to inspector, he always provides the best experience for me overall, because I can rely on him and his consistency. He's there 15 minutes before every inspection, looking at the exterior of the home, As soon as we arrive, we go inside, and it's just enjoyable. We're doing small talk. He's asking about my clients. He seems generally interested. All the while, he's doing his job professionally and explaining, each part of the home to my clients, because they don't have any idea of how to work any of the home systems or where they're located. But generally, his name is Anthony. He just does such a good job every time, and my clients can really tell that he is looking out for their best interests. And it's similar to what Rachel said, but one of my good friends bought a home, and they had the home inspection, everything was fine. They ended up having additional questions about something that was going on with the roof. There was a small leak, and I didn't even know this, but they had called Anthony, and he made himself available when he was in the neighborhood to come by, check it out after the fact. And I thought that was incredible, because he went out of his way to take care of my clients after the fact that he was paid. And it just showed that he really cared for them, and they appreciated that as well.
Yeah, like really going the extra mile, recognizing that, his relationship with you, and, wanting to not abandon the buyer. Again, the same thing, to making sure it's his client. That's awesome. That's a great story. So when it comes to, and I guess we kind of cover this in the worst experience, but a red flag that might stand out to you, that might make you avoid using a specific inspector. Obviously, you're hearing stuff from other people, but there might be something in particular that would make you avoid a specific inspector.
Yeah, I would say, unfortunately, there are some inspectors who get a reputation for killing deals. And so I think Teddy kind of mentioned that earlier, but I've absolutely heard other realtors say that and warn people of inspectors where, some houses absolutely should be red flags and should have a lot of issues. And there are sometimes you shouldn't buy a house. But there are some other times where it just kind of, everything seems magnified and the explanation might not really be there, which scares the buyers. And so, what could have been just a conversation, or, hey, there is an easy fix to this, or there are ways to fix this, just kind of became this blow up of, oh my God, everything's crashing down.
The light switch plate is cracked. It all comes to a halt.
Yep. So that's the big one. You always want to be careful of, if you get that reputation for killing deals.
Yeah, that's a kind of a tricky line, because obviously they want to find everything that's wrong, but on the other hand, it has to be a balance. It really does. So how about you, Teddy?
So this kind of goes back to, how do we choose our home inspectors? But when we ask for those referrals, online reviews are really important in today's business. Yeah. So if I'm looking up a referral from one of our realtor friends, or even one of my clients, family recommendations, if I don't see any online reviews, that gives me personally some red flags, because I don't know how other consumers have felt about their work.
Okay.
I understand that, some people don't have social media profiles and there's a lot to keep up with, but I do think it's really important for home inspectors to have an online presence. We work on this every day, every week. I mean, we have like 15 profiles.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And we actually have a marketing track here today that will cover some of that for home inspectors, because, and it's not just our generation, but oftentimes we say, if I go to the internet and there's no website, and someone tells me, oh, check out and there's no website at all, or no, I'm like, well, yeah, no, probably not. But yeah, and especially with reviews, and people don't always understand how that makes an impact on that initial call that you might make, right, to them. That's a good point. Let's see here. We've kind of like what makes them, this one is just what makes them stand out, but I guess we've kind of covered that with what you guys have talked about already. What are some ways that inspectors make your job easier? Do they make your job easier?
Absolutely.
They do.
They do. They're doing something that I absolutely cannot do, and I'm very thankful for it. But I think just for making our job easier, what we were saying before, bringing us all along, teaching everyone, and making every customer just feel special and feel like you're really there to teach them about their new home, and you're kind of handing over their home to take care of. So I think that's kind of a big one, and kind of similar to what we'd been saying.
Sure, sure. And how about you, Teddy?
So one thing that I get from consumers that I kind of find to be wrong information is that they believe that from the home inspection, they can ask for a large number of credits, or it's a really great opportunity for them to knock off the, part of that home sale price.
Sure.
And, it's just not the reality of things. Like, I always try to coach my clients that we should be making the right negotiation and the right offer price up front. And ideally, when we get to the home inspection, there are no issues because we don't want this deal to fall apart. So when we're there, it's helpful for me that the home inspector is on my side, in a sense that, we're not looking to like itemize every little thing in this home. Like, we're looking to make sure that the appliances function, that everything is, well, just functioning and it's not broken. And helping to relay that to my clients and letting them know that they will leave their recommendations for what items need to have maintenance or their areas of concern, and how that relays to the I guess the next round of negotiations. That's very important and helps me a lot.
Okay, yeah, that makes a big difference for kind of gauging what it is, the value sort of based on what the issues are, and how you want to handle something like that. We actually have a feature in our software with HomeGauge on creating a repair list from that report, so you can prioritize those things. It really is really convenient for agents if you guys haven't seen those. I did want to just say this. I got a little message from someone, one of the other hosts here, telling me that there was a little comment, and we won't go into a big thing about it, but home inspectors don't kill deals, they do the autopsy.
Oh, I love that, Kane.
I like that. I do. I like it. That's definitely worth
Thanks
mentioning.
for that one.
Yeah, it's a good one. Okay, let's see. So how have things changed? I mean, obviously we're in a really unique place in the world right now. So how do you feel like things have changed since this COVID-19 situation, and obviously sheltering in place or limiting your exposure to other people? How has that changed your process, or even like your experience in the industry?
I mean, it's definitely changed. Obviously, there's been a huge shift towards doing everything digital and as much as possible. So we're in Illinois, and here we are still able to do, to do our showings, to do inspections, to do real estate activities. We're limited, so we can only have 4 people maximum there.
Okay.
So we are able to still do these things, but we're still trying to switch to do more things, on FaceTime, more things on Zoom meetings, whether that is walkthroughs of properties, open houses, inspections as well, and just trying to adjust as best we can to keep everyone safe. Because the market as a whole has absolutely slowed down. I know our office this month alone is down 53% for new listings from where we were last year. So
well, and that's not surprising. I mean, obviously there's so many things preventing you from doing that. Are some, I don't know about your area, I know some other states, are they inspectors doing the IO inspections, inspector only, like where it's only the inspector?
So I've had a couple inspections since we've had the shelter in place order, and it's kind of strange because they've been very different, where I had one who said, hey, look, here's the deal. It will just be the inspector in there. No one else is coming in. Told my clients ahead of time, made sure everyone was aware, and it wasn't a problem. I met him there, gave him the keys. He did the inspection, came back out, gave me the keys. We were done. Okay. I had another inspector who a couple days after that showed up, didn't have gloves on, didn't have a mask, didn't say anything, didn't have social distancing cues. Just, it was night and day. And it was frustrating to have that experience where every time I'm going out, I have gloves on, I have a mask, I am staying as far away from people as I can. But to have someone then who's part of this, who just wasn't following any of those rules, wasn't taking any of the safety precautions, it was a little bit more alarming that wasn't happening.
Even just as a business person, right? I mean, outside whatever your feelings are about the situation in the world, as a business person, to come across as I'm trying to be respectful, right? So yeah, that's crazy. Teddy, how about you?
Yeah, I echo a lot of what Rachel has said. It's been kind of amazing to see how the industry has evolved in light of COVID. We have moved virtually in almost every aspect, from closings to home inspections, buyer consultations to the showings. And I think that the consumer has been very understanding, obviously, since everyone is at home. Um, I have not been able to do any home inspections during this time, but I have heard from other agents who have had similar experiences, such as Rachel. I have gone on showings though, where I've seen the other agent put themselves in, I think, risky situations. They weren't wearing masks. They also weren't wearing gloves. And they wanted to speak with my clients in like these small rooms within 3 feet. And for me, that just made me very uncomfortable. Because again, I think as an industry, we're supposed to be pushing best practices and safety practices in terms of COVID. So I agree with Rachel wholeheartedly that, you know, when it comes to at least home inspections, setting these expectations up front about how you want people to interact or to stay 6 feet away, and prepared wearing a face mask and gloves, I think that's very important, and people will respect that.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think that if considering the inspector's the one who's got to poke around every little corner of the house, if they set the stage for what the expectation is, I think it makes it a little easier for other people to enforce. A lot of home inspectors I know have already put their policy about it on their website. They have like a little step-by-step. I've even seen guys put signs on the door. There's a home inspection in process. No one is to enter the premises. So really, really interesting how we've had to adjust based on this situation.
Shanti, this is Dax. I know Shanti's having a few issues being able to see the chat function. There was a comment that just came in that I think it'd be interesting if the three of you maybe just express an opinion on. Obviously, during these times, everybody's trying to adjust. And it's fascinating to hear about the different experiences you've had with realtors using PPE or not. And now, of course, inspectors are trying to use video tools. The comment was, I see Zoom inspections as a huge liability. I am okay with a phone or Zoom follow-up, but video the entire inspection is a lawsuit waiting to happen. I wonder, perhaps Rachel, with you being part of a large corporate team, has that come up at all? Should inspectors be worried about that? Are you worried about that as the realtor?
So yes, I mean, you know, especially when we kind of talk about first-time home buyers and just the people, like I said, when you just get a report, you get a little nervous. So you want to be a part of that inspection. You want to feel like you really understand what's going on. So I have heard of inspectors who will FaceTime. And so what's nice is they can go through, do their inspection, and then afterwards they'll pull up FaceTime, talk with the client, just like they would at the end of an inspection, walk through, hey, here are the items and issues I've found. And if it is something, you know, that visually might make more sense, walk them over there with their phone and show them, here's what I mean here, and this is why this isn't working, and this is, you know, looks like this, but it should look like this. But I think that visual element can make a big difference and just make those clients feel more included in the entire process.
Yeah, that's interesting. Mike Rogers, who was just on before, he's just messaging actually to say, we've been approached by some companies that are providing body cams for inspectors, used as a way for protecting inspectors against claims claiming if they damaged something and actually didn't. So that's interesting that there's clearly, as with a lot of innovations, there's two very complicated sides to that one. Okay, sorry, Shanti, back to you.
Oh, no worries. Actually, someone else, this is off topic, but I just almost can't believe this question. So I have to propose it now. Someone said that they have agents asking for part of their fee, like a kickback from the inspector for giving them, obviously that's not proper, you know, but he doesn't know how to prevent not getting business because he's in another state. He's not in the state. I can't even believe that that's a thing in the world right now. So even before the world, this is crazy.
So like for a referral, almost like a referral fee?
Like, I guess you could call it that, but it's really a kickback.
Yeah, that's frustrating. That's definitely frustrating. I've never heard of anyone doing that, but there are a lot of realtors out there, and I'd imagine some of them like to make their own rules as they go.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I would say that I would actually report them to the.
I would.
That's what I would do.
You know, especially when it's kind of hurting you. And if they're not going to use your business because they're not getting a portion, I would. And, you know, and that might just be, you know, if not like going to their managing broker and just
or something.
sending a message or just saying, hey, I want to let you know this is happening. And this is not only illegal, but just unethical. You shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, and once one person kind of starts doing it, then what stops anyone else who's sketchy from doing the same? Next thing you know, you're like, why am I paying people to hire me? That's crazy. All right, let me see where we are. What's our time here? We've got about 10 minutes. And how about when you have a transaction in process and you're going to hire an inspector, do you give your clients, obviously I kind of get it, I think Teddy gave me the impression he uses one primary inspector, but do you give them choices, or do you say, hey, this is my preferred inspector, or do you say, here's some names so they can, I don't know, compare somehow?
So I always start by asking them, you know, do you know any home inspectors? You know, maybe a friend or a family member, you know, do you know anyone? I would say 90% of the time, the answer is no. And that's when I say, I'd be more than happy to make some recommendations for you. So what I do is I will give them 2 names of 2 companies I work with and tell them, you know what, I trust both of these companies. They do a really nice, thorough job. I think you should reach out to them. So I also just give 2 just for scheduling reasons. Sometimes you're not able to get someone when you all need it. There's a lot of schedules outside of COVID-19 that need to be there and be a part of it. So, so I usually have 2 that I go with and just tell them, hey, I have full faith in both of these companies. I know they do a great job. You can, you know, decide which one works better for your schedule.
Great. Okay. And Teddy?
Yeah, so I do have my go-to inspector, but when I provide referrals to clients, I usually give them 3 options from 3 different companies. They don't tend to look into these because they don't know many things about the inspection. So I think it really falls back on who's available for that time that we want to do the inspection. And I do reach out to all these companies and figure out who's available. So they usually go with one of our recommendations.
Okay. What percentage of the time do your clients use? Oh, so you're all the time. You all the time that you pretty much your reference, your referral is what they're going to use, unless by some miracle they already know a home inspector or Uncle Charlie who knows everything about houses or whatever.
I would say there have been maybe 2 instances ever where my client has been like, no, I have an inspector, I'll bring them, but they almost always refer to what we're going to recommend.
Yeah, I think if it's like an investor client, someone who's bought and sold multiple properties, in those cases, they might have a team that they like to work with or an inspector that they're familiar with. So in those cases, they might have.
Sure, that makes sense. That makes sense. So when someone's asking you, like, how would you tell a newer inspector how to get attention to get new agents to hire them? Is there some advice you might have to kind of help them, the newer guys who are trying to get more agents on board for their services?
Yeah, you know, I think it's important, kind of like Teddy and I both had said when we started, you know, we're just looking for someone, and when you're new in the industry, you want to find someone who you can trust and someone who you have as a referral. One thing I know they do at our office, and this is obviously prior to shutdown rules, but what we have a lot of people that come in, like an attorney might come in, and we have a pretty large office. We have over 400 agents. So they'll hold a meeting and it's open for all new agents and just any agents that want to come in, and they do a presentation. So I would think reaching out to a brokerage and just trying to get yourself in front of those people, pass out your card, kind of walk through what the process looks like and why they should use you. Because a lot of those people at those offices, they need someone, they need a go-to person. So by getting in front of them, you already have an audience of people who need your services, and just, you know, and maybe to make it more enticing, throw some pizza in for them or something.
Like donuts, something.
Right? Donuts and coffee. Because everyone will show up if there's food. But
you know what? It is the great motivator.
It is. But I know that's been really successful for different areas that have come into offices, and same with for us at CAR, for the Chicago Association of Realtors. For every class, for every training, someone comes in and sponsors that, whether it's a title company, an attorney. they come in, they bring usually some food, they give, you know, a 10, 15-minute spiel, but everyone in that room now has their card, has their contact information. Just a great way to get a bunch of people at once.
Sure. Yeah. I was going to say, you guys usually have a meeting weekly of some kind, and they're all going to be there anyway, most of them. How about you, Teddy?
Yeah, I was going to add that newer inspectors should look at some real estate networking groups in your local area. We have YPN in Chicago, which is the Young Professionals Network. And it's similar to what Rachel said, but we meet once a month and there's free breakfast that is provided and there's a panel of speakers. And those that sponsor, they have a time to introduce themselves and their business. And everyone that's there, they'll get everyone who's attending their card and contact information. But it's a really great way to meet people, a wide variety of people in the industry who are maybe newer or do a lot of business. So there's really good opportunities out there to get some exposure.
Sure. And it's funny because we go round and round with how to market yourself and all these variety of different ways to market. We do emphasize a lot of this online stuff. But there's really something to be said for showing up at the office and saying, look, I'm actually doing a little legwork here. And I'd really like to get some FaceTime with you all, right? I mean, and plus you can kind of get the vibe off of the person if you feel like they'll be a good fit for what you guys need. I mean, something said to be, you know, for energy, right? All right, let's see what we've got. A couple more questions because we're going to be wrapping up here in a minute. How do you feel about the inspector giving the home buyer an opportunity to get an insurance quote? I don't know if you guys are familiar with our extra care program, but because that's part of the transaction process, right? I mean, I used to be a loan officer for about 10 years, and God knows if I did not get the hitting the wall with no deck page to close, it drove me crazy. So, I mean, how would you feel for that kind of incorporation into making sure that gets handled by the inspector on the inspector's end?
I mean, I think it's a good idea, you know, as the inspector, you know that house better than anyone else who's offering the client's insurance. The clients, you know, there's that trust that I think is automatically built in between you and the clients where, you know, everyone else is looking at pictures online or, you know, looking at the address. They really don't know anything. But now you have someone who really understands and who's also now saying, hey, you know what, we know this other service that can really help you and protect your home now. So I think I think it can go hand in hand, and it's a logical step to kind of offer that.
Right. And it is not it's just the basic information that an insurance company would expect to get. It's not getting the whole home inspection, but it is very much, it's basically like, here's the basic information you would ask me over the phone. And now, but at least they kind of get that ball rolling, even if they don't go with whomever the inspector, you know, puts them in touch with, or the service puts them in touch with. They can then use it as a starting point, which is sometimes hard to do. How about you, Teddy?
Yeah, I don't think I would mind it. And I think it would make sense after there's like a natural introduction into like, here's the issues going on in the home. And then, okay, let's segue into the home insurance and what that could look like. So I think that if it's a little less salesy and it just makes sense.
Oh yeah, it has to be, it's subtle. It would be really, I would never expect a home inspector to really, I mean, personally, to like be like, let's pitch the insurance over here. But, but yeah, no, there's just a reminder, because there's so many things to remember as a buyer. I mean, goodness knows the list of things you have to remember to do just to get from the beginning to that closing date, and you're distracted and pulled in every direction by everybody. Everybody wants to, you know, make sure that you get it all done. So it's not a bad reminder, I don't think.
Yeah.
Let's see. I have one more question, but it says, how do you recommend inspectors approach each inspection? I didn't write that question. Actually, unless you guys have, I'm going to peek really quickly. We have like 5 minutes. I'm just going to look at some of the questions that people may have posed and see if we've got, it's funny because I have two platforms.
Let me help you there. We've actually had an incredible amount of questions. And so for more than 250 people who are listening to this session, we will actually post a follow-up Q&A and Rachel and Teddy, if you don't mind, we might reach out to you just with a few of those questions.
That's a great idea.
Let me have a scroll through. They were kind of bucketed into a number of themes. One question is interesting. Why don't realtors do more pre-listing inspections to get ahead of issues that come up with inspections just prior to closing?
I think that's a great question. I think for me, it depends on what type of listing I have. So, you know, if it's something that is a condo, is something a little bit simpler, I'm not going to recommend they go through that and that expense. But I have had, especially some older homes, just trying to convince my clients, you know, you can get ahead of any of these issues now. So I always recommend it, but I think it's just, it can be overwhelming for the clients, and just they kind of feel like, let's do first things first, we'll get to the inspection down the road. But I always think they're a great idea.
Okay, that's very interesting. We're getting so many comments about this thing of realtors potentially illegally charging fees. I think that's something that we'll write something up for everybody.
Yeah, it's not kosher.
To address that. Mike had an amusing comment that I have to read out. Pay that kickback fee or else sleep with the fishes.
Straight out of Chicago.
Right, exactly. An interesting comment from Eric that in Canada, it's actually legally required for a realtor to give 3 names. I think that's let's see. So Kevin asks a question specifically for you, Rachel. What are the reasons for not allowing realtors in the States to double end a deal?
Well, so we actually are allowed to do that here. So in Illinois, you are able to represent the buyer and the seller. The reason, though, it's kind of shaky territory and is not allowed in some states, it's hard to fully represent the best interest of your client when both are your clients. And so legally, you really have to step away from the situation and you become more of a mediator. And you're just the middleman. You can't give an opinion on anything. You can't give advice. You're relaying a message from the buyers to the sellers, from the sellers to the buyers. So I'm not a huge fan of doing it, just because I don't feel like I'm really giving my clients everything I should be giving them. And I'm not really helping them along the transaction, because you have to step back if you are on both ends of the transaction. It is legal and, you know, in Illinois, and so people can do it. But personally, I just like to be more involved and really kind of hold hands with my clients for the entire transaction.
Great. And Teddy, I know that was specifically aimed at Rachel, but is there anything you want to add to that?
I would say that my managing brokers, they're pretty against dual agency. There's just a large liability concern. And so I've only been involved in one dual agency transaction, but I know that many top agents now, they'll just reach out to me and say, hey, do you want to represent the buy side? I'm on the listing side, just to make sure that, you know, there's no issues. So I would tend to, you know, not go that direction myself.
Okay, that's great. Shanti, we are up about time here. Do you want to pick a couple of random winners for the gift card?
Let me have a look, see. Just gonna scroll up and down, whoever's there. How about, I want to make sure I don't pick employees. Hold on.
You've just made some employees quite sad there, Shanti.
Sorry, guys. Mike Cross. Let me write that down. That's a $50 gift card, Visa gift card, hopefully for you to use at a local business to do a little bit of, give a little love to the local businesses. And one more, I'm going to kind of scroll through. And how about Todd Arnold? Todd Arnold. We've got your email addresses, guys, and we'll send you some information. Yay! We love prizes. All right. The next session is coming up here in just a minute. Let's see what we've got. We've got the extra care session, which is going to elaborate on some of the things we discussed here with Rachel and Teddy. Thank you guys so much for participating. It was really informative. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Have a nice day.